How does everyone toxic coworkers? I'm asking. For the longest time, I honestly thought I was the problem. Every morning I'd sit in my car outside the office, staring at the building, trying to convince myself to walk through those doors. Some days I'd arrive 20 minutes early just so I could mentally prepare for whatever waited inside. It wasn't the workload, it wasn't the deadlines, it wasn't even my manager. It was the people I worked with every single day. I used to believe that if you worked hard, treated everyone with respect, and stayed away from drama, people would naturally respect you back. I couldn't have been more wrong. When I joined the company, everyone seemed welcoming. People invited me to lunch during my first week. They showed me around the office, joked with me, and made me feel like I belonged. As someone who genuinely enjoys connecting with people, I opened up pretty quickly. We talked about our families, hobbies, and weekend plans. Sometimes we'd stay after work for coffee. Looking back, I wish someone had told me that coworkers and friends aren't always the same thing. I wasn't pretending to be close to them. I genuinely cared. Unfortunately, not everyone had the same intentions. The first signs were so small that I ignored them. I'd walk into the break room and conversations would suddenly stop. Someone would quickly change the subject. A few people would exchange looks before smiling at each other. I convinced myself I was imagining it. Everyone gets paranoid sometimes, right? Then the jokes started. One coworker made a sarcastic comment about something that had happened during my weekend. The strange part, I had only told one person about it. A few days later, another coworker joked about my family. Again, information I'd only shared privately. That's when it hit me. Everything I said in confidence wasn't staying private. It was becoming entertainment. The gossip spread faster than I could understand. People started asking unusual questions. Why were you absent yesterday? Who were you talking to in HR? Did your manager call you into a meeting? At first, I thought they were just curious. Later, I realized they were collecting information. Every small detail became another topic for discussion. If I took a sick day, they had theories. If I stayed late, they had theories. If I smiled, they had theories. No matter what I did, someone found a way to twist it into a story. One coworker made things especially difficult. She never confronted me directly. Instead, she'd post vague WhatsApp statuses that everyone in the office understood were aimed at me. Nothing specific enough to prove, just enough to embarrass me. She'd write things about fake people, fake kindness, or people pretending to work hard. Everyone knew who she meant. I'd pretend not to notice. Inside, though, it hurt, more than I wanted to admit. The worst part wasn't the gossip itself, it was the feeling of constantly being watched. I'd catch people looking at me before quickly looking away. Phones would disappear the moment I walked past. Someone would whisper, another person would laugh. Were they talking about me? Maybe, maybe not. But after months of this, your mind starts filling in the blanks. You begin questioning everything. Even silence feels threatening. I tried fixing the situation. I talked to people politely. I asked if I'd done something wrong. I apologized even when I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. I worked harder than ever. I volunteered for extra tasks. I stayed late. I helped teammates whenever they needed it. I believed that if I proved myself through my work, people would eventually stop talking. Instead, nothing changed. In fact, it almost seemed to get worse. That's when I realized something painful. Some people don't actually want a solution. They want someone to look down on. And once they've chosen that person, every action becomes another reason to criticize them. The emotional toll was enormous. I'd come home exhausted without having done anything physically demanding. My mind never stopped racing. I'd replay conversations over and over. Why did they laugh after I left? Did I say something stupid? Was I too quiet, too friendly, too trusting? Some nights I cried because I couldn't understand why people I'd never intentionally hurt seemed determined to make work miserable. I even started looking for other jobs. Every lunch break became another search through job listings. I imagined handing in my resignation and never seeing those people again. But reality isn't always that simple. Bills still have to be paid. Responsibilities don't disappear because your workplace becomes toxic. So I stayed, not because I wanted to, because I had no other choice. Eventually, I reached a point where I was simply tired. Not angry, not sad, just tired. And strangely enough, that's when everything began to change. I stopped trying to make everyone like me. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped sharing personal stories. No more talking about family. No more discussing weekends. No more trusting people simply because they smiled at me. I became friendly, but private. Professional, but distant. If someone asked about my weekend, I'd smile and say, it was good. Nothing more. No details, no opportunities for gossip. At first, they seemed disappointed, almost like I'd taken away their favorite source of entertainment. Some people tried asking more personal questions. Others attempted to start rumors just to get a reaction. I gave them nothing. No arguments, no emotional responses, no dramatic confrontations, just quiet professionalism. Eventually, they lost interest. Not completely, but enough that work became bearable again. At the same time, I realized I had spent so much energy worrying about toxic people that I'd ignored the good ones. There were coworkers who simply came to work, did their jobs, and treated everyone with respect. I'd barely spoken to them before. One afternoon, one of them asked if I wanted to join them for coffee. I almost said no. Instead, I went. It turned out to be one of the best conversations I'd had in months. No gossip, no hidden agenda, just normal people talking. Another coworker quietly told me, "You're not imagining things. I've noticed what's been happening." Hearing those words lifted a weight off my shoulders. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone. Not everyone believed the rumors. Some people had simply chosen not to participate. Outside of work, I started changing my habits too. Instead of spending every evening replaying office drama in my head, I forced myself to focus on things that actually made me happy. I started walking after dinner. I listened to music instead of negative thoughts. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned years earlier. I even began exercising regularly. People often underestimate how much movement helps your mental health. It didn't erase the toxic environment, but it made me stronger. Little by little, I stopped carrying work home with me. The biggest change happened with my family. I realized I had been physically present, but mentally absent. I'd sit at dinner thinking about conversations from the office. I'd ignore happy moments because my mind was busy replaying someone's rude comment. One evening, I looked around the table and asked myself a simple question. Why am I allowing people who don't care about me to steal time from the people who love me the most? That question changed everything. From then on, once I left work, I made a conscious decision to leave the office behind. It wasn't always easy. Some days I still struggled, but every day became a little better. Looking back now, I don't think the biggest mistake I made was trusting the wrong people. We're human. We naturally want to connect with others. Trusting people isn't something to be ashamed of. The real lesson was learning that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your personal life. Some relationships belong outside the workplace. Some people should remain coworkers and nothing more. There's nothing wrong with being polite while protecting your peace. The toxic coworkers are probably still there. They've likely found someone else to gossip about, because people like that rarely stop. They simply move on to another target. The difference is that I'm no longer giving them power over my happiness. I've learned that their behavior reflects who they are, not who I am. I can't control what people say behind my back. I can't stop every rumor. I can't make everyone like me, but I can control how I respond. I can protect my boundaries. I can choose where my energy goes. And most importantly, I can choose kindness, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. So if you're dealing with toxic coworkers right now, remember this. Don't lose yourself trying to win people over who have already decided not to understand you. Do your job well. Protect your privacy.